Okay, I'm sorry, let's move on. Public participation of agenda-related items only. Anyone care to speak to the board? Yes, Ms. Council?
I would like to address, Karen Council, 713 Beach Avenue, LaGrange Park, Illinois. I would like to address the village board meeting agenda item, ordinance number 1055 that will be voted on. Possibility of raising the sales tax for the business development districts, of which there are 4, from its current status of 9% to a new rate of 10% is presented in the language of ordinance 1055. This increase, if passed, would allow the 10% tax to remain on the books for 23 years, the term of the BDD, Business Development District. The main concern I have is the village board and staff has no idea if the state of Illinois is proposing to raise the sales tax or what items and or services will be included when and if a budget is finally realized. For example, though the statewide beverage tax has been tabled for now, the possibility of instituting one still remains. With that in mind, should the state increase the sales tax another 1%, that would mean the village would automatically see an increase from the current 9% to 11% if the board approves this motion tonight. If the village were trying to attract businesses to the community, as well as invite consumers to shop at these establishments, the question begs, wouldn't more shoppers be attracted if there were a decrease in the sales tax? The idea of increasing taxes in the village business development districts is disheartening, to say the least. I would like to know what benefits the residents will derive from this tax increase. Recently, the residents voted on and passed referenda for village-wide improvements, as well as purchasing safety equipment. Even though there is an increase in property taxes, we will derive many tangible benefits from said increase. I sincerely hope that you will view this for what it is, a tax increase, even if you call it a revenue stream. Please consider the effects this will have on consumers. It behooves you to humanize the situation. We should not consider this a matter of simply doing business. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Robert Consul, 713 Beach Avenue. I'm here also to address the proposed sales tax increase of 1% for the 4 business development districts. When the residents of the village passed a referendum last year for the road improvements, fire truck and ambulance, they did so with the knowledge that this was going to affect their real estate taxes for the next 10 years. They did so knowing that in the long run that this was going to benefit both them and the village. In light of the information I've seen, I do not see how the sales tax increase will benefit the residents of LaGrange Park. In 2015, when our residents to the south, the village of LaGrange, wanted to increase revenue for flood relief, they voted on and passed a referendum to increase their sales tax from 0.25% to 1%. In addition, there were other offsets where they decreased their food and beverage tax and froze the village's portion of property taxes. There was a direct benefit to the residents of the village. As stated earlier, I do not see how this sales tax will benefit the residents of LaGrange Park. In reading the newspaper article with regards to LaGrange referendum, it mentioned that the Illinois Municipal Code required municipalities to get authorization from voters by referendum to increase the retail sales tax or service tax. When I went to the Illinois Department of Revenue's website for non-home rule municipal sales taxes, there was a question. Is voter approval required before implementation? The answer was yes, voter approval is required. In that same paper, there were statutory references made to the municipal sales tax, retailer's occupation tax, and service occupation tax, 65 ILCS 5/8-11-1.1, 1.3, and 1.4 respectively. In 65 ILCS 5/8-11.1.1, non-home rule municipalities' imposition of taxes, it mentions that the corporate authorities of the municipality may, by ordinance or resolution, call for the submission to the electors of the municipality the question of whether the municipality shall impose such tax, essentially submitting the question to the voters, and if a majority of the voters in the municipality vote in the affirmative, such tax shall be imposed. So in addition to not seeing the benefit of this proposed sales tax to the residents of the village, and in trying to understand the above references to the Illinois Municipal Code, I have to question if the village board has the authority to simply vote at a village board meeting to increase the sales tax without first putting it on referendum and asking the residents of the village for their approval. During your upcoming discussions on the merits of the sales tax increase tonight, I ask that there is a substantial discussion on whether or not the board has the authority to do so, and the results of this discussion are made part of the written minutes of this meeting. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll move to consent agenda. Amanda?
The items on this evening's consent agenda are as follows. A, approval of minutes, Village Board meeting, January 24th, 2017, work session meeting, February 14th, 2017. B, action IPCBC subpool modifications. Motion to approve a resolution authorizing withdrawal from a governmental self-insurance subpool and membership in another governmental self-insurance subpool, and requesting the approval of the board and directors of the Intergovernmental Personnel Benefit Cooperative. C, action renewal of paramedic firefighter contract. Motion to approve a resolution to allow the village manager to execute a certain agreement with Public Safety Services, Inc. to provide paramedic firefighter personnel from May 1st, 2017 to April 30th, 2020 for an amount not to exceed $1,598,858. D, action sidewalk and curb gutter replacement contract, 1-year extension. Motion approving a 1-year contract extension with Globe Construction, Inc. for concrete restoration services at a cost not to exceed the total amount budgeted for the annual sidewalk program in the FY 17-18 budget, and authorizing the village president to execute the necessary contract documents. E, fiscal year 2017 audit services. Motion to approve BKD LLP to perform the required annual audit of the village's financial statements for fiscal year 2017 in the not to exceed amount of $23,500 to be expensed in the FY 2018 general fund, water fund, and sewer fund, and authorize the village manager to sign the agreement. F, action motion to authorize the president and chairperson of the finance committee to sign the register for bills, and authorize the treasurer and village clerk to sign checks in the payment of operating bills and salaries as itemized in the check registers. G, action motion to authorize the village treasurer and village clerk to sign checks in the payment of payroll and other bills that become due between this date and March 28th, 2017, with subsequent approval of the payroll register and voucher register by the Board of Trustees at its regular meeting to be held on March 28th, 2017.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
Yes.
Trustee Zora? Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Amanda. Moving up next is our village manager's report. Julia?
Check. Mr. President, members of the board, I have 3 items to report this evening. The first report that I have comes from the Quasquicentennial Committee and sponsorship for all of the events that are coming as part of the celebration, including the birthday party to take place at Memorial Park on July 15th. The committee has raised thus far $4,652 towards the celebration and all of the events that we are holding. So that is exciting news. That gets us closer to the, I think, $25,000 goal that the committee is looking to raise for all of the activities that they have, and sponsorship opportunities and donations. There is a method to donate on the village's website, so for anybody that would like to do that. they can go to the village's website. The second item I have to report is regarding a groundbreaking ceremony for Memorial Park. As the board may be aware of, Memorial Park will be undergoing a number of public improvements at their park. Construction will take place in the early months of the summer and in late spring. The groundbreaking event will take place on March 3rd at 1 p.m. So that is an exciting opportunity for folks to get involved and not to be missed. And the last item I have to report is a budget reminder. The village village staff is in the process of working on the final elements with regard to budget preparation. Our first meeting with the Finance Committee will take place on March 14th before the Village Board work session. And the budget hearing will take place on April 11th, and that will begin at 7 p.m., just a half hour early from our regularly scheduled work session meeting on April 11th. We anticipate that the budgets will be available for the Village Board review on Friday. So that's exciting as well. And that is all I have to report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, Administration Committee, Trustee Lautner.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have two items to report upon from the administration area. First of all is regarding Arbor Day nominations. Our annual nomination for the National Arbor Day is Friday, April 28th. For the 14th consecutive year, the village is accepting nominations to plant a tree in honor or in memory of a person or group that has made a positive contribution to our community or whose achievements deserve special recognition. To submit your nomination, please visit the village website at www.lagrangepark.org to download a nomination form or contact Deanne Carello for more information. Nominations will be accepted through April 14th. The tree will be planted in a public space, in a park, parkway, etc., during a public ceremony in late April or early May. And a small plaque mentioning the honoree will be installed at the base of the tree. And as reported by the village manager, regarding the village 125th anniversary, in celebration of the village's 125th anniversary, our village is partnering with the Community Park District to host a village picnic and birthday party on July 15th of 2017. The family-friendly festivities will last all day and include food, fun inflatables, lawn games, live music, and much more. This once-in-125-year event is sure to be one to remember, and we need your help to make it happen. The festivities are being planned by the Anniversary Committee and are being funded entirely through donations from our residents, businesses, and organizations. The more funding that we obtain, the more activities that we'll be able to offer. Donations may be made online via PayPal or by mailing a check to the Village Hall using our donation form. And please note that on the check that the donation is for the 125th anniversary. You can also support the cause by spreading the word. Help us solicit sponsors. Tell your neighbors. Ask a business that you patronize to consider sponsoring our celebration. No donation is too small, and multiple donations are always welcome. Thank you for your commitment to making LaGrange Park a wonderful place to live and raise a family. We look forward to celebrating with you on July 15th. And that concludes my report from the administration area, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Building and Zoning Committee, Trustee Zora.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one report. 31 building permits were issued in January compared to 21 last January. Estimated construction costs for the month are more than 3 times what they were last January. Permit fees collected for the month were also nearly 3 times what they were compared to last January. 96 inspections were conducted in January compared to 84 of last January. 3 were not approved. During the month, the village welcomed Patrick Boyle as our new building official deputy building commissioner. Patrick has a lot of experience in the areas of building inspection and code enforcement and the municipal environment. The board welcomes Patrick. During the month, building staff again assessed a property of concern in the 800 block of Beach. The village determined that although it has a great amount of peeling paint, the garage does not appear to be in imminent danger of structural collapse. A lot of effort and research was completed by the village, but there have been difficulty getting other property maintenance concerns addressed at this property as HUD oversees the property. The village is continuing further attempts at enforcement. Building staff met on site at Congregation of St. Joseph to address a number of issues related to their renovation and construction. Work continues on the I building, and work has now commenced on the tear out of the exterior parking and landscape areas. Also during the month, after the required licenses and bonds were submitted to the village, the actual renovation permit was issued for the Village Field Club. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Zora. Engine and Capital Projects Committee, in lieu of trustee Casera not being able to make it, trustee Rocco will give his report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just have a report, and that is work on the design of 2017 street paving program is almost complete. The project will be split into two separate projects in order to attract more potential bidders and have work performed on the project simultaneously to minimize inconvenience and disruption to the residents. The village awarded a contract to National Power Rotting on January 24th for the cleaning and televising of sewers ahead of the 2017 street paving program. This information will be used to identify any sewer repairs or maintenance needed on these lines to prevent any pavement improvements being constructed. The plans and specifications for the Harding Avenue improvements from Brainerd to Kemen Avenue have been submitted to the Illinois Department of Transportation for their review. IDOT schedule currently identifies a letting date in June. Contract award should occur in mid-July with an anticipated start date in early August. Construction should be completed by late fall. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, trustee Rocco. Public Safety Committee, trustee Messick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will start with the Police Department summary of activities for January. Total crimes reported for the first month of 2017 are similar to last year, with 23 this year compared to 26 in 2016. Overall, police activity is slightly higher, with 571 incidents reported in January of this year compared to 557 last year. Total tickets issued for the month of January were 570 compared to 557 last year. Adopt a Cop annual skate party will be held on Saturday, March 25th at Darien Sportsplex Ice Arena. Another successful Coffee with the Chief and staff occurred on Thursday, February 23rd at Plymouth Place in conjunction with Fifth Third Bank Management in relation to fraud alerts. One spot is remaining in the first LaGrange Park Police Citizens Academy that will take place on Thursdays from April 27th to May 25th, which will be held in the Village Hall Boardroom. A notice will be sent to all participants in the first week of March by Coordinator Officer Chris Dempsey, welcoming them to the program, and will educate them on the positive interaction that will occur throughout the program. And that completes the Police Department report. Now on to Fire Department activities. EMS responses for this month were 162. This compares to 138 in January of 2016. Fire rescue incidents this month were 40 compared to 39 last year in January. Following village board approval, the contract was signed with Pierce Manufacturing for the purchase of the new Quint aerial ladder truck. Again, many thanks go to those who made it possible, including the board for approval and committee members who have actively been working on this project, and especially the residents. We anticipate delivery to take place by January of 2018. During the month, CPR and AED recertification was provided to our fire EMS personnel. 3 new paid on-call employees began work with the department as candidates in January, with 2 starting the fire academy. 1 had previously attended. Unfortunately, 1 has already withdrawn from the academy due to a combination of medical and time-constraint issues. Fire prevention staff witnessed a final fire alarm test for the installation of a new fire alarm system at 326 Beach. Also, a final occupancy inspection and fire sprinkler inspection was completed for the new home at 845 North Catherine. During the month, 2 staff members participated in the emergency management training with Plymouth Place, helping to complete a hazardous vulnerability analysis for the facility. Much work was completed in regards to the LTAC project in January. On the fire side, discussions took place with Tyco regarding final operational options for moving alarm receiving equipment to the new facility and the monitoring of specific alarms, and some initial staff worked on building out the fire mobile and field reporting portions of our new CAD system. And that completes the fire department activities report, and there is 1 action item. So general background, it is parking restriction modification for the 31st Street North. On October 25th, the Village Board approved an amendment to the Village Code to modify the parking on the north side of 31st Street between Beach and Newberry, and on the 1100 block of Newberry from 2-hour parking to 1-hour parking. The amendment also modified the parking restrictions on the east and west sides of the 1000 block of Newberry from 30 minutes to 1-hour parking. A total of 48 public parking stalls, included 3 handicap stalls, were impacted by this change. The parking restrictions in this area were changed in order to better accommodate the needs of existing businesses in the vicinity, to improve vehicle turnover rates during prime business hours, and to create consistency across the public parking areas. And there was a attached memo dated October 3rd for more information. Staff has been in conversation with a proposed business owner who is interested in purchasing the 1015 and 1017 East 31st Street, the former Children's House Montessori School and gaming space. At this time, the business owner prefers that his name remain confidential. The owner is proposing to open a restaurant and bar which would seat approximately 75 people and would initially only be open for dinner. The owner anticipates conducting catering during the daytime hours and potentially opening the restaurant for lunch at a future date. The owner is also proposing to incorporate some outdoor dining along 31st Street in the front south side of the business, and may expand outdoor dining to the rear or north side of the building at a future date. Carryout would be conducted to the rear of the building, with patrons entering via the existing alley off either Newberry or Beach. The anticipated traffic flow for this proposed carryout operations does not differ significantly from the pickup, drop-off operations that were conducted by the previous tenant, the Montessori School. However, staff would evaluate the traffic flow in greater detail as part of the zoning and building permit process. Similar to other properties along 31st Street, the existing buildings do not have on-site parking available for patrons. Patrons of the proposed restaurant are expected to utilize existing public parking located along the north side of 31st Street, immediately adjacent to the business. Public parking along the east and west sides of the 1100 block of Newberry, and public parking spaces located on the east side of the 1100 block of Beach, adjacent to the State Farm Catnap private parking lot. A total of 33 public parking spaces are available between those 4 areas. The proposed parking hours of operation for the restaurant are Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. The owner of the restaurant has indicated that the existing parking regulations, the maximum 1-hour parking that are in place over 24 of the existing 34 public parking spaces, will not meet the needs of his business during the evening hours. According to the owner, the majority of the restaurant patrons require a minimum of 90 to 120 minutes to complete their dining experience. The owner has asserted that should the existing parking restrictions remain in place, it would prevent him from moving forward with the opening of the restaurant in this location. The owner has conducted several parking counts in the area during various times of the day, and staff has also conducted some informal parking counts. Based on our conversation with the restaurant owner, the makeup of existing business and their hours of operations, and our evaluation of parking habits in the area, staff concurs that the existing parking restrictions on the north side of 31st Street between Beach and Newberry, and on the east and west sides of the 1100 block of Newberry, are inadequate to serve the needs of a restaurant. As a result, staff is recommending that parking restrictions in these 3 areas, be modified slightly to eliminate the 1-hour parking restriction after 5. As the primary hours of operation for the proposed restaurant will be after 5 p.m., this modification would accommodate restaurant patrons by allowing them to park for a long enough period of time to complete their dining experience. The primary hours of operation for the neighboring businesses are during the day, so they would not be impacted by the change in parking restrictions. The primary competitor for public parking spaces during the evening hours in this area is the YMCA, and the YMCA has on-site parking of 10 spaces and the use of adjacent public parking lots on the 1000 block of Newberry. The previously approved changes to the parking restrictions in this area, increase from 30 minutes to an hour, has resulted in increased usage of these spaces by the YMCA and reduced parking overflow on the adjacent residential street. Modifying the parking restrictions on the 1100 block of Newberry to eliminate the 1-hour parking restriction after 5 would allow a new business whose patrons require longer parking durations to use those spaces when available. In staff recommendation, in order to accommodate the parking needs of the proposed restaurant, staff recommends modifying the existing public parking restrictions on the north side of 31st Street and between Beach and Newberry, and on the east and west sides of 1100 block of Newberry to 1 hour parking until 5 p.m. So at this time, I make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the LaGrange Park Municipal Code as amended.
I have a motion and this, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Trustee Messick?
Thank you, Mr. President. This, to me, seems like a good plan for it's both to encourage business. What I would like the chief to address, if you had talked to, or, any resident concerns or police department input on this.
Trustee Messick, the rest of the board, to answer the situation, we do informal traffic studies that we've done. We've done the foot patrol in the area, speaking with the businesses. From the aspect of how this is to enhance, and that's what the biggest thing we look at, is how the traffic flow and the enhancement is going to be to that area for the businesses, the use that's being done. All of that is taking into consideration. At this point, this is what best suits what's going into that situation in order to accommodate correctly the makeup to that area, the surrounding, the available space, and then the positiveness that this can bring to that area. As we've done in the past with the south side of the block, the enhancement that we've done over there has worked very well, and I feel this enhancement would be the same on that end for the benefit of that business area.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, I see this as a positive for the community. It's something to draw people in, families together, community members together. I would fully support this.
Thank you, Trustee Messick. Any other comments from the board? Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. Certainly makes a lot of sense, and as we discussed, I think fairly thoroughly at the work session, and acknowledge the amount of work that went into the traffic studies, whatever. I think it makes a lot of sense. The question I would have, though, is in the event that anything would happen that the business would not go into this area, and we proceed with changing the parking area, then would we be required, or should we then discuss changing it back? Or is it fine to stay what we would be changing it to? That would be my only question is, or is there an update on how likely the business is in opening that area?
Well, I can respond to that, and certainly the staff can jump in. When the request came in from the prospective business owner to evaluate the parking, that certainly is what prompted us to take a look at the parking in this area again. However, we had several discussions internally about this proposed change, and we felt, staff feels that regardless of whether or not this particular business opens in this location, it still makes sense to make these changes to the parking regulations because there is no reason to prohibit the use of those stalls after 5 p.m. It makes sense to make those stalls available for longer periods of time because you're past the peak time, and there may be other businesses that could take advantage of that. So we feel that it's a change that makes sense regardless of whether or not this use goes forward. But as we typically do, we will always continue to monitor the parking in the area, and if we see that adjustments need to be made, we would certainly bring those back to the board.
Okay, and thank you for that clarification. I certainly would be in support of that, given the comments.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. Trustee Rocco?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, exactly what Assistant Manager Rodman said. When I was looking at the parking spaces that are being affected, that regardless, it seems to make sense that those parking spaces are altered. And like you said, that if that is an error in judgment, that can be rectified later at a later date. But regardless of whether this business goes in, this seems to make sense, and I would be in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Any other comments? Seeing none, Amanda, will you call the roll?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
Yes?
Trustee Zora?
I have to recuse myself.
And that concludes public safety, Mr. President.
Thank you, trustee Messick. Moving on to Public Works, and again, in lieu of trustee Sheehan, trustee Zora will give the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a report and then one action item with two motions. Due to the unseasonably warm weather, there has been an increased brush pickup. 31 regular hours and 18 overtime hours were spent on 3 snow events, which required. Sorry. This thing is so touchy. Check. Okay, thank you. There were a total of 280 miles salted and plowed with approximately. Can you hear me?
No. Maybe we talk directly.
There were a total. There were a total of, no, it's still 280 miles salted and plowed with approximately 58.6 tons of salt. The sweeper spent 56 hours cleaning 175 miles of village streets and picked up 109 yards of debris. 11 diseased maple and ash trees were removed. 297 regular hours were spent on the maintenance of public works equipment and vehicles. 102.5 hours were spent filling potholes. 81 day shift hours were spent on building and ground maintenance around the public works facility. Check. I'm not sure. It's me.
The magnetic field over there.
Yeah, really.
I'm wondering if that's something. Work orders were completed with crews removing roadkill, making sign repairs, and picking up several piles of brush from a windstorm. Regarding mechanic maintenance, various repairs and preventative maintenance were performed. In the water department, over 376 day shift hours and 147.5 overtime man hours during the month of January were spent on maintenance and repairs of sewer and water mains. And that's all I have to report. But on to my action items.
Sure, why not? I hope it works, trustee Zora. Thank you.
Sure.
Last chance.
We'll see how this works.
Third time's the charm.
All right. Staff is seeking the board's approval to award 2 contracts for the fiscal year 2017-2018 road paving program. The road bond fund is being financed with the proceeds from a $10 million bond issuance approved by referendum in March 2016. The fiscal year 2017-2018 draft budget includes $4,775,000 for Phase 2 repaving projects. The streets to be completed are available on the village website. The 2017 road paving has been broken into 2 separate contracts so that all streets identified can be completed during 2017. By separating the 2 projects, it is expected that more contractors will bid on the work, allowing for more competitive bidding. Hancock Engineering prepared the necessary bid specifications, and the bid opening was held on February 21st, 2017. The full bid results and recommendations are attached to this. 1, the village enter into a paving contract for the north section, contract 1, with the lowest bidder, K5 Construction Corporation, in the amount of $1,295,985.59, plus a 5% contingency. The village enter into a paving contract for the west section, contract 2, with the lowest bidder, Davis Construction Company, in the amount of $1,290,387.75, plus 5% contingency, also for unforeseen conditions. Staff recommends approval of the contract to K5 Construction Corporation in the amount of $1,295,985.59 plus the 5% contingency for contract 1, and for contract 2, Davis Concrete Construction in the amount of $1,290,387.75 plus the 5% contingency for unforeseen conditions for contract 2. I would like to make a motion for K5 Construction Corporation for contract 1, the north section, in the amount of $1,295,985.59 plus the 5% contingency for the unforeseen conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Trustee Zora?
To me, this makes sense. Hancock recommended that we split this up into 2 separate contracts for better bidding, and I'm also assuming that this would have a quicker construction time possibly because we're having 2 different crews. Correct. So I think this makes sense to do it this way.
Thank you, Trustee Zora. Trustee Laudner?
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly have heard of these 2 companies, but are these new contractors for our village? Have we used K5 before?
We haven't used K5 for a number of years. The last project they did in town was the 1987 paving program. They, however, did do Brookfield's paving program last summer and got very high recommendations from the folks over there. Both Public Works and the village administrator and the engineer all gave positive reviews. They're a very large firm. And very capable of doing the work we have in this contract. Davis Concrete, also, as a firm we're familiar with, they were the concrete subcontractor for this year's project. They'll be coming up next. I don't mean to get ahead, but maybe I can answer that at the same time. We had no issues with their performance. They actually were done in a timely way. We struggled to get the paving in behind them, but the concrete work was done to the specifications and within the time frame allotted.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, seeing no other comments, Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Laudner?
Yes.
Trustee Zora?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Continue, Trustee Zora.
Thank you. And the second motion would be for Davis Concrete Construction Company for contract number 2, the west section, in the amount of $1,290,387.75 plus a 5% contingency for unforeseen conditions. And again, I think this makes sense, splitting the contracts to expedite things and also for better pricing.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And again, Trustee Zora, any other comments from the board? Amanda, call the roll.
Trustee Messick?
Yes.
Trustee Rocco?
Yes.
Trustee Lautner?
Yes.
Trustee Zora?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Trustee Zora, for
Thank
stepping
you.
in. Finance Committee, Trustee Rocco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have the report tonight. We are 75% of the fiscal year 2017. Fiscal year to date, general fund revenue is at 66% of the annual budget and approximately $178,000 less than last year at this time. Sales tax receipts are about 3.5% lower than last year, while telecommunication taxes are down by just under 10%. Intergovernmental revenue is about 10% lower than last year due to increased receipts from income tax and personal property replacement tax. A small drop in income tax revenue was expected this fiscal year because last year's receipts included a one-time revenue due to federal and state tax legislation. However, the decrease is now about 13% compared to last year, which is much larger than anticipated, and there is not yet a clear economic reason. An investigation of the decrease by the Illinois Municipal League concludes that the decrease is at least due in part to a change in the accounting system used by the Illinois Department of Revenue. IDOR has indicated that the variances in the cash flow pattern will continue into 2018. Charges for services are down about 12% due to decreased ambulance fees and special event revenue. Miscellaneous revenue is lower than last year due in part to lower property damage reimbursements. Also, the village received a one-time payment of $37,000 for past due payment in lieu of taxes last year. Transfers are greater than last year due to the new transfer from the motor fuel tax fund to the general fund to support street maintenance programs. Total general fund expenditures are within expectations at 65% of the annual budget and about $156,000 above last year. That concludes my report, Mr. President, and there are no action items. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Moving on now to Commercial Revitalization Committee. I've asked Trustee Rocco to give a report. If you notice that, if this is for discussion only, we probably should have discussion and action tonight, but since action's not on the agenda, we can only discuss, so we have an option to continue discussion on this item or postpone it to our next meeting when we can take action on it. In lieu of, respectfully to the Rob and Karen Council, their comments will be taken accordingly, but if the board would prefer to hold off until next meeting when Trustee Kusier is here and we're able to take action on it, we can do that, or we can have discussion. Trustee Rocco.
Mr. President, I am fine with us not having any further discussion, but I am absolutely open if there are, I know that, if there is, Trustee Messick may want some discussion this evening, so I feel that if there's other trustees that do want discussion, further discussion, I am, open to it, but I'm fine for us, because I feel like we've had full discussion and can move on to action. But,
Okay, we can continue. I think our village attorney would make some comments on Mr. Council's concerns, and also that I would request that we do it at the next televised meeting so that our public can hear the comments from the board.
Oh.
Everyone okay with that? We can still make comments. Trustee Zora?
I just had a question about our timelines, because I know we had a pretty tight timeline. Does that cause an issue?
As the board may recall, when we talked about establishing the timeline a couple of months ago, we had built in an extra month
Okay.
that would allow us to have the filing with IDOR before April 1st. However, my understanding in March, our board meeting would be the 28th. That would place us at the 28th. So if action were taken on the 28th, we'd have to file the next day. I'm not absolutely certain that we can get the filing completed within that period of time, the 29th, between the 29th and April 1st, but
Okay, why don't you look at that, Julia, and we'll have Kathy respond, and if we
Sure.
can't do it on the 29th, then we'll see if the board is agreeable to do it at the work session. Okay, Kathy, would you care?
Mr. and Mrs. Council brought up some sections of the Illinois Municipal Code 8-11-1.3, 1.4, and 1.5 that limit non-home rule municipalities to, in certain situations, passing sales, retail occupation taxes, and related sales tax without a referendum. The particular three sections that they referenced, it's actually four sections, 1.1, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5, specifically limit the requirement of a referendum for taxes which are to be used for municipal operations in general, that's section 1.1. And then the other three sections are limited to expenditures for public infrastructure or for tax relief. Those are the sales taxes that cannot be passed without a referendum. The Business Development District Act is 65 ILCS 5/11-74.3, and then there's various sections cited in that act. All of the sections that we're relying on to pass these ordinances are cited in the actual ordinance 1055. The Business Development and Redevelopment Law authorizes villages to impose a sales tax designed to fund development or redevelopment activities with respect to certain designated business development areas. So what the village has done in this process is designate 4 business development areas. They made findings which are part of the published record at the 4 hearings required by the Business Development Act about why these 4 areas constitute appropriate business development areas so as to give the village the authority to pass the tax. The purpose of the tax can only be for the planning, the execution, and the implementation of expenditures designed under the business district plan. Those are all development and redevelopment expenses which have to be spent within each area. That is to say that the taxes raised in each of these 4 areas must be spent in the area in which the taxes were raised. So, I think that responds. The Illinois Department of Revenue has published something that is entitled, if you go on the IDOR website, it's called Business District Development and Redevelopment Law. And that summarizes the fact that a referendum is not required for business development taxes. So if you go on the IDOR website and look at their publications, they'll give you a good summary of that.
Thank you, Kathy. So the next step then would be if anyone has any other comments they'd like to express tonight regarding. Sure, Trustee Messick?
Yeah, I'm all for, this is something I think we should have the full board, if at all possible, for the discussion. But I am concerned on the timeline as well, but I don't want it to get pushed out to where it's not on the TV meeting. I mean, I would want to do this one at the public meeting where shut-ins can see us and all too. If that messes up the timeline, because we're saying maybe, maybe not. So I'm hoping if we can't do it within that timeline.
We could always televise the work session.
Then
That's certainly an option.
If we could do that, that's fine.
We could check to see if they could televise the work session. That's one option. With regard to meeting the filing deadline, I wouldn't have an answer until I had an opportunity to talk with our attorney that's been working on this. I just don't know if
Okay.
we can logistically complete the filing with IDOR within that 3-day period to meet the timeline. I won't have that answer for tonight. If it were the 28th, but we
Okay,
can
so-
certainly ask to televise the 14th, meeting on the 14th.
Okay, so certainly if we can get the work session televised, that would be the best option. If we cannot, then we won't know that tonight. Are we willing to wait till the televised meeting and run the risk of not passing or not being on time with the filing of these 4 motions? Any comments from the board? I know, Trustee Messick, I know your opinion.
I would prefer to do it at the work session if we could. I don't, either way, I don't want to risk it. If we do determine that we're going to move forward, then we might not be able to.
And I would concur with those comments as well as Trustee Messick's, that a full board for discussion and final decision, I think supersedes, even waiting till the end of the month and then risking the time frame. I think having a full board is more important, is most important, and televised.
Well, we certainly hope that we will have a full board at that point.
Certainly.
We can. Trustee Rocco?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we don't have a full board this evening, we can't vote on it, but I have to say that even if it was up for action, I would feel comfortable voting on it even without a full board, because although Jim Kucera is not here, Trustee Kucera is not here to cast his ballot, I think I'm comfortable in what his position is based upon what was said at the work session. I'm unsure of Trustee Sheehan. So, I mean, if I was unsure of Trustee Kucera, then it would make me concerned, because then we could have not enough vote. If it was 3 versus 3, your vote would be necessary. I also want to move towards if we can't get the work session televised, I would like it decided at the work session. I guess first one question is, if we miss that deadline, when's the next? What are we talking about? When's the next time it could be
6
up?
months.
The next deadline is October 1st for a January 1 effective date for collecting the sales tax.
So it would be from July, it would actually be 6 months. Okay, so I guess my thought is this, that I would like it to get televised, and if not, I would like to decide at the work session. I guess I would urge that we could have some discussion if to play it safe, to have some communication in front of the television, if Trustee Messick would prefer that, just at least tonight at this point. I don't know. I know there's not a motion, but just a discussion regarding it. It allows the opportunity for it to be at least discussed in front of a camera in case of.
Okay, I would agree with that. I understand Trustee Messick's feelings, but we've had a public meeting. We talked about it after the public meeting. We are talking about it now. I think if anyone if we go down this path, I think any resident that is interested should attend the work session. And let's just assume, if it's okay, I see the votes are in favor of doing it at the work session. If we could have it televised, that's great. If we can't, we'll do it anyway. And hope that Trustee Casera is available at that night, and Trustee Sheehan also. But is everyone okay with that besides Trustee Messick? We okay? So at this point, maybe if anyone would care to express any concerns now that we are speaking to our residents tonight, that may or may not be televised next time, if they would care to make any comments. Trustee Messick?
Thank you, Mr. President. As we discussed at the work session, I do not support any tax increase at all. I think we can do it with the TIF funds. I know we have a business developed district. For many of the reasons we've talked about, we have no idea where the state's going. This is something that would further impact our residents. We don't have, we're already taxed to death, and we have more things. Today the state senator was discussing things. It's the cumulative effect of these taxes we're going. And I think we can get where we want to go by using the TIF, which we had set up to reinvest in our village. I think we'll get the same effect out of it. I'm just against any kind of further taxation to a community that's already taxed beyond belief. So.
Thank you, Trustee Messick. Any other comments, Trustee Rocco?
Thank you, Ms. President. I just would like to, while I truly appreciate what Trustee Messick is saying and do take it to heart in concern, and it's something that we should be looking at. But on the same token, I do look at this in that what we've heard from the business community is that the chamber is in support of this. Our business who are the ones who would be most directly impacted. Well, I shouldn't say that, because the residents who are and people who are purchasing are impacted, but the businesses are in support of it. The money is being used to improve the business districts in those areas. We've done it. It's in conjunction with the TIF, and the whole idea is it's kind of like in for a penny, in for a pound, that as long as we've gone through the trouble now, we've made the TIF districts, this business district tax will, it's augmented with it, and that's part of the whole thing that's going to make, in my mind, us succeed in terms of economic development and commercial revitalization. So with those in mind, I think that to me, it makes sense. We are competitive with our surrounding communities. In terms of the taxes, it's not, there's some that tax higher, there's one, I think, in the immediate surrounding, it's a little lower, but pretty much everyone is the same. And so we are competitive. And for those reasons, I think that it makes sense for us to move forward with this tax increase.
Thank you, Trustee Rocco. Trustee Zora?
Thank you, Mr. President. Although I understand the council's concerns, we have talked about this in great length, and I feel like you can't predict what the state's going to do. We can't live in fear that they're going to raise our taxes, because they probably inevitably will, and that could create a roadblock for our village to potential redevelopment. I mean, we've been sitting on the Pancake House property forever, and maybe if this 1% can help spark something, we can have some potential redevelopment. Groceries aren't affected by this. As Trustee Rocco said, the chamber stands behind this. And I feel like this is a good move for the community and into helping possibly spur something in those business development districts.
Thank you, Trustee Zora. Trustee Lautner?
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the discussions along the way of this topic considered the competitive nature that going into this, that we have the lowest tax rate in our area, and which I think can be an advantage. But considering comment from public comments this evening that the state, who knows what they're going to do, and that certainly is a valid point. But if the state does do anything with increasing taxes, it's going to have the same impact on all villages. So theoretically, it would maintain the competitive nature if we do increase it, so that we're right in there with the rest of the surrounding communities. It's going to be the same impact on them globally. I also initially started out being very, very concerned about continuing to increase taxes, especially in view of everything that has come down the line from the village, from the school districts, et cetera. But as we've gathered, I'll say the feedback from the business owners and from the other residents I've talked with, I am more in support of considering a sales tax increase that will at least maintain from the standpoint that there is a direct impact. We can see directly where those monies are going to go into those business development areas. So I've become more comfortable with it, representing the village as a resident. I think we just need to make sure that we continue to do as we have done, and being responsible with the funds that get returned back into the business development. I think that will be a benefit to the village. So I've become more comfortable as a representative of the village.
Thank you, Trustee Lautner. I too am sympathetic with raising taxes, and I agree with Trustee Messick. It seems like we're getting taxed all over the place. However, if you recall, one of the reasons we're doing this now is the business district would be able to start generating some funds that we could start seeing some action sooner than we are going to see when the TIF districts become efficient enough to generate funds. So that was one of the primary motives we decided to do it at this point. The other thing is we talk about what the state's going to do, and I agree that the state's going to tax us and taxes, but the other thing that we have to be aware of too is that our revenue sources are going to dry up too, possibly. The LGDF may go away or be substantially decreased. Other revenues that we receive from the state could possibly go away. I think we're being proactive in concerning that we need to get things going. This was part of the Commercial Revitalization Committee's initial goals, which Trustee Rocco and Trustee Zora sit on, and we were all in agreement at that point. And I think we're doing a diligent thing here and moving forward and making sure that our efforts are successful. So we cannot take a vote tonight. Any other comments before we move on? So if everyone's in agreement, we'll hold discussion at the work session, hopefully have it televised, and hopefully Trustee Sheehan and Trustee Jim Kucera will be here to join us so it can be a full board decision.
And
Thank you, Trustee Rocco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would you like me to give the report?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so the Commercial Revitalization Committee report regarding tax increment financing. The Village Market and 31st Street Barnesdale Road TIFs were approved on January 24th, 2017. The TIFs have been filed with Cook County. I think they were filed yesterday, right? Did I see them? Last week, okay. I read it yesterday, maybe. The business development implementation on February 14th, the village board, we did conduct 4 public hearings regarding the 4 proposed business districts, which is what we were just discussing a few moments ago. And that will be on the agenda for the work session. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
And thank you, Trustee Rocco, for filling in and taking over Trustee Kucera's report. Other reports, Village Clerk,
I have nothing to report, Mr. President.
our Village Treasurer,
Nothing to report tonight, sir.
our Village Engineer,
No report, Mr. President.
our Village Attorney.
No report, Mr. President.
Motion to approve committee and collectors reports as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on my report, I just have a couple things. One, I'd like to thank Julie and Emily again for strategic planning process that we went through a couple weeks ago where the board was in attendance and we discussed future needs of the village and how we're going to accomplish those. And I thought it was a great session. We had tremendous input from the board and from staff, and I want to thank the staff for being there. And Julia, you and Emily for organizing it and making it go so well. And it certainly sets the vision for the future of this community. Groundbreaking ceremony again for the Park District is on Friday. And staff is working very hard in the budget process at this point, so only call them if necessary because they are on edge.
An LTAC.
But we look forward to that. Now, public participation of non-agenda related items. Would anyone care to address the board that has been waiting patiently? Name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Kelly Raddy, and
Check.
1521 Robinson.
It's working.
I'm
They
gonna
have to,
sing this.
they have to capture you at home.
I'm gonna sing. We can't hear you otherwise. We like a little singing. Okay. My name is Kelly Ratty, and I live at 1521 Robin Hood in the Grange Park. I've been a resident here all my life, worked for the village, played with the village. The reason why I'm here today is I'm requesting permission to be able to have chickens on my property, and I know I spoke with Emily, and she had told me that at this time you guys have visited this, I guess, a few times, and I think it's time maybe we revisit again. For selfish reasons, I have major health issues and allergies, and everything that I have to purchase is very expensive. On a broader scale, I think it's a good thing for the community. A lot of the surrounding communities are currently doing it, have ongoing successful programs going on. I spoke with Oak Park and Evanston, to give you two just today. You can keep it as simple as possible. Oak Park has never changed their ordinances, allow the chickens, and I asked them pros and cons on problems and stuff, and they said that it's been successful. They don't send people out and do things. They just kind of, it's on the honor system. Whereas Evanston is more in depth, and they require getting license and permit and contacting Department of Agriculture and getting certification and stuff. So basically what I'm asking, I've talked with a lot of neighborhood people who also are interested, and I'm not just coming to say, hey, this is what I want. For those of you who know me, I've been very involved in our town and our community, and a lot of the projects. The Walk of Life was my baby, and the first 5 years raised $212,000 for this village. So I'm not just kind of a sit back and kind of, gimme. I'm an idea person, and there's ways that we can end up generating money and revenue for the town. Not everybody's going to run out and want chickens. It's going to be a few select people for specific reasons, for individual reasons, and I just kind of wanted to know what I needed to do or what you guys would need to see that would make you revisit and possibly change your minds in this.
I think just you coming forward, Kelly, is a start. And what I'd like to do is, continue your discussions with Emily and Julia and see if we can get something presented to the board to discuss and see where the direction the board would like to take.
Would they be interested in me contacting all the villages to find out, like, for instance, Ricky is bringing home, Bensonville has an active program right now, and he photocopied everything and was bringing it home after the storms tonight.
I think discussing that with them would be the appropriate means to see what would be the best format for bringing it to the board and making sure that it's all inclusive.
Okay.
But I thank you for bringing it forward.
Sure.
Being a farmer.
Yeah, that's what I was meant to be. You guys just kept building too many houses.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks.
Thank you for being patient.
That's okay. We've been working.
Any other new business? Any new business? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.